Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And yeah, new release from Simon Says Stamp. I think it's called Just a Note release. As usual, I didn't double check before I started filming. I'll have a link to the entire release in the description box below the video. The thing that first jumped out at me first was this super sunflower plate wafer die, and I was like, oh yes, I love it. I haven't checked yet to see if these are the same size and whether or not they line up with the little individual sunflower wafer die that I've used already in a couple videos from the last release. Haven't had a chance to check. If they do, that's great. If not, I don't really care, but it would just be fun, you know? So yeah, really cute. I made flat shaker cards with them and showed a couple of different options to add adhesive to make these flat shaker cards. One of the things I used, I do not have a link for, so that's why I thought I would mention it. It's this Xyron Creative Station Lite. I've actually had this thing for years and years. I don't even know how many years I've had this. I think it's still like available on the market, just not very easy to get. And I'm not sure if Simon Says Stamp can get them in again or not. They used to carry them again years ago. I actually used to work with Xyron again years ago, many years ago. I don't even know how many. But yeah, I've had it sitting here and I haven't been using it. And it's like, I literally have a box of refills and stuff for it and I'm not getting rid of it. So I use that. But I also show another option, which is Scor-Tape. Same thing. I've had the Scor-Tape, like, look at this ridiculously huge roll. I have all the sizes and same thing. These are years old. Years and years. And like everything I hoard, I'm like there's so much adhesive here. So there's options and you can still use liquid adhesive as well. So I will show you guys how I made these fun flat shaker cards. And like always, stay tuned because I have tons and tons of videos coming. I've been posting a lot. I'm getting caught up, sort of. I'm never caught up, but I'm working towards it. But lots of content coming. And yeah, let's get into the actual making of these cards. Okay, so my first step in making these cards was to coat the back of panels of white cardstock with adhesive. Like I mentioned, one panel I'm using my Creative Station Lite. This is I think it's 5 inches it's called, Xyron. And like I said, had this little thing for years, and all it does is coat the back with adhesive, basically like a sticker. You guys have seen me use this in old videos, but in newer, like more recent videos, I use the little X or I have my little 3-inch one. But I needed something that would cover the whole back of these panels because these are just slightly larger than A2 sized because this die cut's A2 sized. Saying all this and showing all this, you can also skip this completely and then just use liquid adhesive, but I want to adhere these to the acetate pieces that I use for the shaker. And I've mentioned this many times. I don't like using liquid adhesive when adhering to like acetate, plastic, etc. It just, if I can avoid it, I will. I don't like it. It annoys me. More often than not, I get glue oozing out, you know, those sorts of things. So these types of adhesive, that I like to call them dry adhesives, are my preferred way because they'll just basically like fuse to it and it's not going anywhere. So I was curious to see, you know, and in the end, I was kind of right. Both methods work. So Xyron machine works great. Covering the back with Scor-Tape works great. Do you need a huge roll, like super width like this? No. You can just use multiple like strips because like it comes in everything from like less than like an 1/8 of an inch or something like that all the way up to, I don't even know if this size that I have is available anymore. I think this one is like, well, this might be 2.5 inches. That's what I linked to. Anyway, coated the back of them. Then I ran them through my die cut machine and I use a Spellbinders Platinum 6. Again, the only thing I would change is I probably should have added a little bit of a shim when I die cut these. It die cut them fine, but because when you're die cutting, like this is heavyweight Simon's heavyweight white cardstock. This is 120 pound white cardstock. So that alone is just, it's hefty, which is nice. And then add in the adhesive. So the die has to cut through that and the adhesive and the backing. So I should have just added a shim. I thought, I'll get to that when I peel off the backing, but that was the only thing I would change. So I die cut it. And then as you can see, I've just left everything in place. Like the parts I'm going to pop out because it's just fine. And then for the coloring, the first little bit I had in real time. Now I've sped it up, but the coloring was very, very basic. I used my Spectrum Noir TriBlends to do this coloring. You could use Copic markers. You could use whatever type of markers you want. Ink blending would work great too. I thought I was going to do that originally. And then I was like, ooh, I'll just color them with my markers. And I'll use my TriBlends because I haven't used them in a really long time. Or really long in my world. Because you guys know, I do a lot of videos. But I pulled out 3 markers, and with the TriBlends, there's 3 shades in each little set. I will link, I have a playlist for that too. I will link to that playlist at the end of this video of just previous videos I've done using these markers. Because yeah, they're great. So I used the gold yellow blend for the petals, the earth brown extend for the centers, and then for all the green parts, it was just the light green blend. That was it. And like I always do, I just worked darkest to lightest, slap that color on. And I only showed this one. There was no point showing the second one because I did the exact same thing. And with the second one, I just zoned out to a YouTube video, Netflix, whatever, and colored. But saying that, it didn't take that long to color these because, yeah, it was just multiple little sunflowers. It was quite simple, really. So once I was done coloring these panels, I'm going to do the backgrounds. And I decided to go with blues. Simon released more ink cubes for their Pawsitively saturated inks. They've been releasing a couple sets with each release for the last 3-ish months, something like that. And this release, they're doing the blues. So I pulled out Marine, Cadet, and Galaxy Pawsitively saturated inks. And then I've got my blending brush. And I have 2 more panels of Simon's smooth white cardstock. And these are A2 sized. And again, I'm working, well, this time I'm going lightest to darkest. With marker coloring, I generally go darkest to lightest. With ink blending, lightest to darkest. So I kept the lightest color to the center. And again, I've sped this up. I don't blend near this fast. I think I mentioned this in a recent video. I would love sometimes to be able to like clean this quickly. There's other, just those sorts of like menial tasks. It's like, man, if you could just, press fast forward through those types of things that are just not fun. But anyway, with things like ink blending, I actually enjoy the process. I just speed it up so that you guys don't have to sit here and just watch the monotony of it. So I did Marine, the lightest color, in the center. And then I brought in Cadet and then Royal, which is the darkest shade in this trio. And I've got some just Post-it tape on my fingers there just so I don't get fingerprints on these backgrounds because these are water reactive and more often than not, like fingerprints will show up. So once I was done my blending, cleaned off my work surface, and then I just used a piece of recycled packaging. That's another thing I will link to. I have an entire playlist of flat shaker cards, and I have used all sorts of things to make my flat shaker cards, but one of my favorites is just recycled packaging. I save it all. Those that watch all my videos, I sound like a hoarder. I save a lot of things. There's actually something else I saved that I'll show later in this video, but it all comes in handy and I use it. So it's not like it's piling up like this packaging. I got a lot of it, but I use it. So I just cut a couple pieces down to larger than these A2 panels. And then I just put adhesive around the perimeter on the back. And for this, I'm just using Simon's Terrific tape. Scor-Tape will obviously work just as well. And for this, I especially, I can't even recommend enough, a dry adhesive like the Terrific tape or Scor-Tape. Red line tape, that works too. Because if you use liquid adhesive, you will literally have to sit there and hold it for one. And I don't trust liquid adhesive as much with packaging, especially if I'm going to fill it with little glittery bits and things like that. No. So I just put adhesive around the perimeter, fold up those edges, just like so. And then when I fold up the third edge here, you can see me using my scissors. When you fold up the third edge, the corners kind of stick out a bit. So I just use my scissors to trim off those little bits so they're not sticking out past the edges. And then I place the adhesive on the fourth edge, but I don't adhere anything yet because you got to fill them. And in this new release is this Perfect Day Sequins pack. And I was like, this is all just meant to be. They're perfect to go in these shaker panels. The color is gorgeous. And yeah, I this time I paid a little extra attention because I've shown this videos too. More often than not, I tend to overfill my shakers. It's just, I have a heavy hand with everything I do. You know, splatter, adding bling, filling up shakers. It's just what I do. But I just put what I call a decent amount in these. So they'll show up and be pretty and move around and all the things. So once I was kind of happy with what I had going, that's when I flip these over, peel off the backing, seal them up, and then trim off, again, those little corners that are sticking out. And then I've got 2 flat shaker panels. So this part. This is where I wish I had used a shim. Just even like a little extra piece of cardstock when I ran these through my die cut machine. Because they did die cut. It was just, again, it's the adhesive that, it's frustrating. So this took me a little bit to remove the trash pieces, you know, and it also didn't help that like I'm working with a full A2 panel and some of these parts are delicate. So I was a teensy bit frustrated, but I will say it was more than worth it. Like once I actually got everything out, at one point, like halfway through, I was like, oh no, this isn't going to work. I'm going to rip this. But also I was working with heavyweight cardstock. That was a bonus. If this had been really lightweight cardstock, it probably would have torn when I was trying to remove everything. So anyway, this little white piece, this is another thing I've hoarded. And I'm so glad I did. I was like, you should throw this out. You don't really need, like, what are you saving this for? Ha. I'm pretty sure that this is actually one of the Xyron backing pieces from a previous project. It's just one of those things that adhesive was stuck to. And most likely it was Xyron adhesive or maybe adhesive squares. But, you know, they have those little backing sheets that stuff doesn't stick to, obviously. Perfect. It was perfect because this way you can see, I just kept it behind all of that adhesive. So then I could easily, you know, shimmy the piece into place on top of these backgrounds. Chef's kiss. Because that I was like, oh, this is fun. Because once this is down and stuck, like it's stuck, you know, you're not going to be able to really peel it up without a lot of difficulty. So having that little trash piece in between the die cut and the adhesive and the shaker panel made it so much easier. So there's always a method to saving some of the most random things. A piece of wax paper might work. That's actually what I was going to go and grab from my kitchen. And then I remembered, I was like, ooh, I saved these pieces. So that might work too. I haven't tried it, but you know, just something that doesn't let things stick to it. So once I got those stuck down, the shaker panels are done. So now I just need sentiments. So I used this is the new plant sentiment set. It's got some really like uplifting sentiments. And I was like, at first I was like, okay. But then I stopped and I was like, oh, these will be really cute for, any like, you know, if you do like plant themes or just florals, greenery, anything like that, you know, because we all like our floral cards, or at least you guys know I do. Big florals for the win. But a lot of, and the sentiments in this though are very like encouraging. And I was like, oh, that would be so fun to, do more like plant theme cards, greenery, etc. And then you can add all these fun little, somewhat punny and yet very nice, encouraging sentiments in my opinion. So yeah, it's like every flower blooms in its own time. We blossom through every hardship. You know, there's some good sentiments in here. I'm quite taken with this set. So I white heat embossed a couple of them onto just some black cardstock. And then I decided to make my card bases from Simon's Cornflower Blue cardstock. Just because. I was like, I got that blue background going on. And rather than just do a white card base, let's do this. So that's what I did. These are going to be top folding A2 note cards made from that cornflower blue cardstock. And I stamped another sentiment with VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink. And then I took even another sentiment from that set, lined it up, and that I stamped with the Royal ink. And with Simon's Pawsitively saturated inks, and I can say with the Concord and 9th inks, because I've talked about those in a lot of videos and shown them in a lot of videos. And they're the same type of ink pad, and they're both like just juicy. Very light tapping, especially with sentiments, but just very light tapping. You don't need any pressure at all, because if you like mush your ink pads into the stamp, you are going to get ink everywhere, and then that's where you get a blobby mess. So got the sentiment stamped, and then those little sentiments that I had white heat embossed, I die cut those with one of Simon's sentiment strip die sets, and then I put that Terrific tape on the back of them, and then pop those onto these shaker panels. And then on the back of the shaker panels off camera, I put that Scor-Tape on the back of these. So just covered. Backs of these are covered. So this is another like spot where you gotta take your time and slowly line them up. I always start with just the top corner, because once these are down, they're not going anywhere. Like you're gonna have to tear them off of your card if you get it super crooked. So I just, like I said, I start with that corner, make sure it's lined up on one side, pop it down, we're done. And we literally are done. These cards are complete. So really fun to make. Hopefully I gave random decent tips and advice. They're super flat, which I love, and yet still shakery. You gotta have the shaker noise, which is super fun. But yeah, super flat, which makes them super easy to mail. And they're sunflowers, and they're happy and encouraging, and I hope they made you guys happy. Like I always say, I very much appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my videos, for the thumbs upping and the commenting, because it definitely helps tell those robot overlords you guys like what you see. And I'll have links to those 2 playlists that I mentioned. That'll be at the end screen of the video, so you can check them out if you want to get more inspiration and ideas. And then I'll have a link to the new release in the description box below the video, along with all the other info. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.